Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for our monthly webinar at VSBA. Today, we are going to be talking about school board reorganization. Congratulations on beginning a new year, a new school board year. As we all know, next week is the beginning of school board reorganization with budgets being voted on and board members being elected. And it's important for your board to follow the steps that are required by law and to lay the groundwork for good board operations throughout the coming year. This webinar will provide the information that you need for your board reorganization meeting. Before meeting for the first time, all newly elected school board members, and this would be first-time members and also re-elected members, must be sworn in by taking the oath of office. The oath of office is usually administered by the municipal clerk. So that's an important detail to take care of before the first board meeting after the election. At that first board meeting, the superintendent calls the first meeting of the board to order and opens the floor for election of the board chair. When choosing your chair, remember that the position promotes development of a strong board team, establishes a strong connection with the superintendent, organizes and conducts productive meetings, and promotes lawful and ethical operations. While seniority on the board can be a plus, longevity is only one consideration and may not be the most important thing to consider when electing a chair. Once elected, the chair leads the meeting. The first order of business is the election of other officers. Election of a vice chair is not required, but it is strongly recommended so that there will be someone to run the meetings in the event that the chair is unavailable. The clerk is responsible for ensuring that meeting minutes are kept and that draft minutes are posted on the website within 5 days of the board's meeting. Generally, these duties are delegated to a staff member or contractor, but the clerk is ultimately responsible for complying with these requirements. In addition to the officers, each supervisory union or supervisory district has the ability to cast one vote to ratify agreements reached by the statewide healthcare bargaining commission. During the years when the statewide bargaining is occurring, please be sure to add appointment of the SU or SD's voting delegate for statewide health insurance to the first meeting of your board, as the ratification process requires each SU and SD to notify the VSBA of the name, telephone number, and email address of its voting delegate by April 1st. Each district that is part of a supervisory union elects representatives to serve on the supervisory union board. Districts that operate schools choose 3 members from each school board to serve as voting members of the supervisory union board. Districts that do not operate schools choose 1 member. Only those designated representatives may vote at SU board meetings. On to committees. If you're thinking about setting up committees, remember that the purpose of committees is to help the board do its job. You should be able to state the reason for having the committee. Committees must have a clear and documented charge defined by the full board and recorded in the minutes or in policy. And it should include the purpose, authority, membership, term, and timeline for the committee. The reorganizational meeting is also a time to make operational decisions, such as designating the board's regular meeting schedule and location, scheduling an annual board retreat to develop board goals and a work plan, and agreeing on the use of Robert's Rules of Order. Vermont law requires boards to use Robert's Rules of Order. Boards with 12 or fewer members may opt to use Robert's rules for small boards, but must agree to do so. When using Robert's rules for small boards, motions need not be seconded. Informal discussion is permitted while no motion is pending. A vote can be taken without a motion being introduced if a proposal is clear to all present. and the chair may, without leaving the chair, speak in informal discussions and vote on all questions. Another operational issue is discussing and agreeing to a code of ethics, covering areas such as agreeing to act within the scope of your official role as a school board member, upholding the highest ethical standards, and respecting confidentiality considerations. There is a model code of ethics on the VSBA website. At this time, your board may also wish to agree on board norms, which will set the expectation for board members' behavior during meetings and connected to meetings. Setting up board norms is also something that might be a topic for a board retreat or a special board training. The reorganization meeting is also a time to designate the official media for publishing notices. Other communications responsibilities include informing and engaging the community, responding to inquiries from the press, and sharing successes of students, staff, and schools. Many boards choose a chief spokesperson. Boards are also encouraged to consider the broader communication goals of engaging and informing the community, although in-depth discussions are often deferred until the board retreat. The reorganization meeting is the ideal time to review district policies on public comment and handling complaints. VSBA provides model policies on these topics and many more in its model policy manual on the VSBA website. Board development is another topic for the reorganization meeting. The full board should discuss and coordinate attendance at board development events throughout the year and create an annual plan to ensure that board members are getting the professional development and support that they need. In addition, the board chair and the superintendent should meet with the new board members to provide them with an orientation on board policies and practices. Finally, the reorganization meeting is a great time to discuss the board's role in advocacy. You may want to designate a specific board member to keep the board informed on current legislative issues. As a member of the VSBA, you have resources available, including the weekly legislative blog, which is issued on Tuesdays, periodic legislative reports, and also legislative alerts. Your board can also engage in a statewide conversation about education by developing, discussing, and voting on VSBA resolutions, and also engaging your VSBA regional representatives and your local representatives in the General Assembly. To summarize, here's a checklist of board reorganization actions: oath of office, election of officers, choosing supervisory union representation, committees, operational decisions, Robert's rules, code of ethics, communications, policy review, board development plan, and advocacy. If you have any questions or concerns about reorganization, please feel free to get in touch with me. I am Sue Siglowski, Executive Director of the VSBA. The VSBA is here to support you through your reorganization and also your future board work. We wish you the best as you begin your new board year. Thank you for serving your community and Vermont's public education system. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to take them at this time.
If you have questions and you'd like to type them out, you can put them in the Q&A or the chat. I do have one question for you, Sue. Can you clarify that Robert's Rules of Order for small boards is not a separate book, but just a section? Should boards decide what rules to use in that section?
I can clarify that it is not a separate book. It is a section in the Robert's Rules book. And I am looking right now so I can tell you what section it is. I believe it's section 49. I have 49:21. And I don't think that you would just opt to use some of the small rules for small boards. Probably if you were going to opt to be clear, you would want to take a look at what all of those rules are in the book. The latest edition is the 12th edition, and then determine, have the board determine whether they're going to operate under the standard Robert's Rules of Order or Robert's Rules for small boards. And that would be Robert's Rules for small boards are only applicable to boards with 12 or less members.
We have another question. Does VSBA have a more extensive list of roles and responsibilities for the chair?
We have a toolkit, a board chair toolkit, and in that toolkit is a lot of resources for board chairs. And I believe that toolkit contains that type of information.
The toolkit can be found under resources on the VSBA page. That's www.vtvsba.org. I have another question. If new members do not want to sign or agree to the code of ethics, then should this be recorded in the minutes and the group moves on, or is there another best practice approach?
So one of the approaches that a board could take, instead of having each member agree to sign the code of ethics, is to have the board adopt the code of ethics. And then you have a vote of whether the board is going to adopt the code of ethics. And then it would be recorded in the minutes whether there was anyone who did not vote in favor of that motion.
Does the chair have to run the meetings when present?
That is the expectation, yes.
Can only the town clerk do the oath of office? Can a notary or justice of the peace do this?
A notary can do the oath of office, and I have to check to see about a justice of the peace, but I know that a notary can do it as well. Any other questions, Carrie?
These are great questions.
They are.
That's all we have right now. Let's see if I missed any. I don't believe so. I think that's all of our questions right now.
Excellent. Well, I think I'll just end by letting you all know that there is a great toolkit on our website for board reorganization. It has a number of tools in it. And Carrie, is there another question?
There are some other questions there in the Q&A. I was looking at the chat. So the Q&A, does using Robert's Rules for small boards make it likelier that a board chair might overstep his bounds?
It certainly provides the board chair with a lot more flexibility, I would say. So that may play into it. Just going to look up what it allows the chair to do. 4921. So as I had mentioned, if the chair is allowed to, without leaving the chair, and that means, not sort of stepping aside as the chair, speak in informal discussions and in debate and vote on all questions. So they have a much more sort of active role in that manner than they would through running the meeting with the standard Robert's Rules of Order. Is there another question, Carrie?
There is. Just one second. You mentioned 3 board members per district for supervisory union boards. Is that a required number or a suggested number?
That is the allowed number under law. And most, I mean, I believe that most boards would take advantage of that to have as much representation as they're allowed under the law for their supervisory union board.
Okay, the next person would like to know if this year we need to appoint a voting member to ratify the healthcare. They said employer commissioners'
Yeah.
work is done for this coming year, correct?
Yes, the employer commissioner's work is done, and there was no ratification required because it went to an arbitration panel. And that panel decision was issued in November. So there is no need to appoint that position this year.
Okay, does the oath of office have to be done in person?
I believe it does, yes.
Okay, this person says, is it possible to get copies of the essential work of Vermont school boards in PDF to provide to new board members? And I can actually answer that one. We now provide all new board members with a complimentary copy of the Essential Work of School Boards book, a hard copy that's mailed to them with a welcome kit. As soon as we get their contact information from the superintendent secretary, as to welcome them to the school board. And we are in final stages of a brand new copy of the Essential Work of School Boards that will be coming hot off the press probably next week. I think that's our last question, Sue. Ended with a good one.
Yes, it's great to be able to provide that resource to all of the new school board members in Vermont. So thank you everyone very much for joining us. This has been one of our shorter webinars, but lots of important information in it. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions about any of it that arise in your mind after the webinar, please feel free to contact me and I would
Sue?
be happy to help you.
We just had a
Yes.
few more pop up here.
Okay.
Would you like to take them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Does the VSBA have any recommendations regarding best practices leading up to the reorganization meeting? In some ways, it seems like the election of officers on the reorganization meeting is almost a formality. What should happen leading up to that?
I'm not certain if the person is asking about at the meeting or in prior meetings. So I'm not, I don't think I quite understand the question, but what I can say is I think it's always very helpful for board members to understand the role of the chair when they're determining who to elect for their chair and their vice chair, and also their clerk. And as far as the chair goes, it might be helpful for the board members to review the board chair toolkit before they elect a chair so that they have a good understanding of what's going to be expected of the chair.
Next question's a little confusing. Robert's rules for small boards, a second is not required. However, it's recommended. So how can we adopt these rules but only use some?
When I look at section 49, or I guess it's chapter 49, section 21 of Robert's rules, it does not say a second is recommended. It just says motions need not be seconded. So, you know, I suppose if your board doesn't agree with that one aspect of it, you could decide to clarify that and still require motions to be seconded, but then comply with the rest of the provisions of Robert's rules for small boards. I think you would have to be very clear about that in the motion that you make.
Yeah, are you required to have a monthly meeting or can you have fewer?
You do not have to, I don't believe there's anything in law that says that you have to have a monthly meeting. You could have fewer. I think most boards find that at least monthly is needed in order to conduct their business effectively. And there are some boards though that do take time off in the summer, at least one of the, usually it's in July for their regular board meeting. They may hold a retreat during that month.
Okay, this is a clarification of a previous question. To put the question another way, how do you recommend boards handle quote unquote campaigns, as it were, for board chair? I think that was about the prepping for
Okay,
reorganization.
prepping. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I've never had that question before, and I don't necessarily have a recommendation for that. But I'll certainly give it some thought. Thank you for that question.
All right, can we provide the manual to all, regardless if they are new or old, in PDF? Districts can pay the manual, pay for the manual for all if necessary. All districts or all supervisory unions, secretaries will get the PDF of the essentials book. So they can print hard copies if they want. Anyone that is not new can order a new copy as well. We just have to charge for the shipping and stuff for it. We haven't decided on the price of that yet because the new book's not out just yet. The essentials book is about 150 pages. All right. So several people have asked if this presentation will be available. And I just wanted to let everyone know that all of our webinars, if you register for a webinar, you will automatically receive an email with the presentation, the video, the handouts, and any unanswered questions, answers to any unanswered questions following the webinar, usually about 24 hours, 48 hours after the webinar. Also, all of our webinars go up on our website, on our homepage for about a month, so that you can have access to it that way as well. Looks like another question. When is the new chair board training? It sounds like it's the joint I think they're talking about the joint training. Sue.
Yes. Do you have those dates, Carrie, on the
Sure.
website?
Let me, actually, what I can do is, well, I'm going to share my screen and I can walk everyone through how to find that as well.
Oh, excellent.
So I'm going to go to, here's our website. Oops. Here's the homepage of our website. And under events is where you'll find all of these things. The joint training is what this person is talking about. It's a strong leadership training. And that is April 25th. It's going to be done virtually this year. It's April 25th, May 2nd, May 9th, and May 16th from 4 to 6 p.m. And you can register right on our website for that. Also, while we're here, I can show you the toolkit. This is a toolkit for the we were talking about the reorganization. If you go to toolkits and click on reorganization, here's all the information there, where you can find the list of like the checklist for the meeting and the oath of office, all that information. Again, that's under toolkit, and it's the reorganization toolkit. And I believe someone asked about the board chair as well. And here's the board chair toolkit that's on the website for board chairs. I believe one last thing I'll mention is, I think under our school board U, which is our lunchtime webinars. Yes, the next one is board chair 101. So if you've been elected to the board chair or you're interested in being the board chair, April 7th from noon to 1 is our webinar on for board chairs. Back to you, Sue. We have a couple more questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
Can we provide, okay, when is the new board chair training? I just mentioned that one. I guess we answered them. You're welcome, Peter.
Is that all of the questions?
I believe, let me just double check the chat. Someone said they're thankful for the thank you cards that we sent them in recognition of board members in January.
Well, thank you for that. And we hope to be able to partner with Darn Tough to get you some new socks next year too, because that's been a tradition and we weren't able to do it this year due to some supply chain issues, but next year we hope to have that back in place.
Great. I think that's everything then.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We really appreciate you being here and wish you the best of luck next week with your board budgets and re-election, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great day.